Welcome back to another fun-filled show. I'm your host. He is Blanche, aka Free Blanche, aka Blanche Radamus, aka Blanchy Kruger. And today's show is entitled The Truth About Redlining Part 2 with Teachum Chuck. You said Blanche, that fruity LGBTQ guy that was on The View is trash talking Snoop. Now you gonna talk about that story? That guy is super insane. Who was the gay guy on The View? I thought The View was all women. One of them people is a man. Who's the gay guy on The View? Let me know. Hold on 1 second. Let me know. What's up, Vintage Goods Willie? What's up, Realtor 2020? What's up, K Mac? Right. Joy a man? Oh, he was a guest. Okay. He was a guest. Oh, I thought one of them was. I didn't listen. You can't never tell these days. You know, they might be on there, pretending. What's up, Neat? I'm gonna check it out though to see. Everybody's mad at Snoop, but I'm like, what did Snoop say that was wrong? Like, I don't want to go to the movies with my grandchild, and they asking me how can two women have a child? Like, dude, like, I'm not finna sit there and try to explain that to my grandchild. You crazy? I'm gonna say grandson or granddaughter or grandchildren. It is impossible for two women to have a child. It is impossible. And keep it that simple. He got dreadlocks. I wonder who it is. Let me see. Gay guest on The View. Gay guest on. That didn't help. Gay black guests on The View. It's crazy. The only person I see is Whoopi Goldberg. Oh, Lena Waithe, talking about her? That's a woman though. You talking about Lena Waithe? Yeah, okay. This is crazy. This didn't help at all. Typing in gay guy on The View doesn't work. Yeah, I mean, Snoop is trash, but oh, here goes Chuck right here. I'm just trying to understand, how do y'all want this man to be at a movie theater with his grandchildren and two women have a child, and the child's like, that's impossible. What's up, Chuck?
What up, dope man? Yeah, my bad. I'm late. My bad. I'm late, bro.
Oh, it's all right, man. I don't.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. Just literally just stopped working. So
Your computer?
yeah, man. I was take care of some last minute business, but yeah, I'm here. Let's get it cracking, man.
All right. So Chuck, I took some. I had some videos from last time, obviously, and I had, but I had some comments that I wanted you to respond to. I just took 3 of them. I'm pretty sure some on YouTube. I didn't really go to YouTube. I just took these 3. But we can just jump right into it. Let me pull one of them up.
You already laughing.
So I'll read the first one.
Okay.
This is by Shizmac.
Okay. God, this okay. So does this person do they show their face or because I'm always curious these people like this that leave these comments and they have these fanciful nicknames and you go to their pages and there's no photo, they have no photographs of themselves, no original content, just a bunch of reposts and memes
Yeah,
and things like that. So I always wonder what kind of people these are. But anyway, go ahead, bro.
I think he's a DJ, DJ,
Oh,
DJ Shizmac, Strictly Vinyl.
mm,
So he says that's not what redlining was at all, not even close. Redlining was a process that began in the 1930s, which was the basis for urban renewal of the 50s and 60s. It was a federal program in which the larger cities were surveyed and neighborhoods deemed to be slums, which most happened to be multi-ethnic neighborhoods, were outlined in red and slated for demolition. Most of those neighborhoods were in fact demolished, and the property was taken by eminent domain.
no, absolutely. These properties weren't taken by eminent domain. Like I said, he probably just responded to the real. He didn't watch the entire show. If you recall, I talked about slum clearing, right? I don't know if you remember, but that's a totally separate issue. As I said in the previous show, that slum clearing and government insured loans, all of these factors were part of the equal and fair housing agenda. But slum clearing is something completely different. Slums were cleared and public housing projects replaced them. And as I said before, the attitude was right on behalf of the social reformers. The attitude was that the slums were breeding grounds for crime, and if you provided people with better housing, then you would have this trickle down effect in culture, behavior, and you would see a lot of these social pathologies done away with. Because again, this was the effect of like I said, particularly crime. Uh, these things were the effects of poor housing. Uh, and again, that's not true. You're talking about the Federal Housing Administration, which is the Federal Housing Administration. I don't know the exact numbers. Like I said, I pointed out the three major federally backed loans last time we went live. You have your VA, your FHA, and USDA. FHA is probably the most utilized. Right, FHA loans are typically for people who, like I mentioned before, don't qualify for conventional loans. FHA loans come with less guidelines, less restrictions, less collateral restrictions. You have to bring to the table, depending on the circumstance, at least a 5% down payment, which is a 5% of the actual contract price, the agreed upon price. You have to bring at least 5% of that to close. Let's see, your debt to income ratio can exceed upwards of 55%. Normally, in a conventional mortgage scenario, once you hit the 50%, that means you are officially upside down and you are effectively disqualified for a conventional loan. Like I said, FHA it's a little bit more lenient, a lot more lenient, in fact, in terms of like your financial uh, welfare, your credit worthiness, et cetera, et cetera. And so again, those are two totally separate things. It's like, again, as far as slum clearing and home lending, two totally separate things. Again, Blanche, this person, I mean, you hear them, you hear all the people when they talk about people were redlined, which means that banks would not lend to them because they were Black, right? That's
Yeah,
what they said. All of this talk about let me go back. Let me read it again. Red light was a process that began again. The FHA the Federal Housing Administration, that began, and this is when the federal government initially began issuing mortgage insurance back in the early 30s. Like I said, I marked the year somewhere around 1933, 1934. I believe the Federal Housing Authority, Blanche, you could just do a quick Google search with this. This began, the Federal Housing Authority was founded in 1937. So this was 5 years after the establishment of the FHA. And so again, these are two totally separate factors. Now, we can talk about each factor. We can play that game if you want. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what you call redlining and what you don't call redlining. But the reality is that he's talking about two totally separate
And
things, and we see how both of them turned out.
and Chuck, well, this is another thing too that he said. He said which most happen to be multi-ethnic neighborhoods. Now, you just mentioned that redlining was strictly for Black people. So the only reason there's outrage about redlining was because it was done specifically to Black people. If it was done to everybody, nobody cares. So I just think it's funny how he said now redlining is multi-ethnic, but I'm like, if it's multi-ethnic, y'all wouldn't care about it. You only care because it was strictly for Black people. But now he's saying that it was multi-ethnic and they were slated for demolition. But I'm like, first you said it was slated to not get a bank loan. Now you're saying it's all slated to be demolished. I'm like, that's two different things. Like, so I get what you're saying. It's like he's talking about is redlining denying someone a loan to get a home, or is redlining to destroy where they currently live? Like which one is it? Because it may be both.
Right, which one is it? I saw two. I think somebody I saw in the comments. You might even have this one pulled up. Somebody made a comment about highways and how I forgot what. Yeah, go ahead. I don't want to steal your thunder and jump the gun. Go ahead.
Is this one it? They didn't secure the loans because they were Black. He forgot to say that these people who are bunched together were bunched together in predominantly Black neighborhoods, and Black people wanted to live in predominantly white neighborhoods. They would deny them, keeping them in the same area. It was very deliberate and still is. So.
Hey, what I don't understand is before we address this inaccuracy, this lie, this slate of ignorance here, I don't understand why would the Blacks want to live in an all white area? I don't understand. You say you live amongst other Black people. I mean, I don't get it, but you want to live amongst whites, and it is for that reason that the bank denied you a loan. Like I said, I talked about the lending aspect last week, and I also talked about the selling aspect last week, where the Supreme Court declared it illegal, these race restrictive covenants, because you did have white sellers that were willing to sell to non-white home buyers in violation of these restrictive home covenants. But I don't understand this. So let me get this straight. So when the bank found out where you wanted to move into an all white neighborhood, that's when they decided to deny you. It's not the likelihood that you're going to repay. Now that has nothing to do with it. The financial institution is in the business of making sure that neighborhoods remain all white. Got it. I got it. And it's funny too, because the federal government was of this opinion, right, that people perhaps would be better off living amongst their own, and so you had certain, regulations or policy measures within the institution, within the federally chartered alphabet agencies like the Federal Housing Administration or the Federal Housing Agency that was, like I said, founded in 1937. You had a policy to where, so as not to disrupt social cohesion, they thought it best not to radically shift demographics. And so in order to get the green light to build a new public housing project, you had to make it clear that you were not going to radically change the racial makeup of the neighborhood. So this is just this is just not true. This is just not true. This goes back to this idea that that predominantly Black neighborhoods were just worse because I guess they just were. I don't know how neighborhoods become what they are apart from the people themselves, the people who live there. I don't get this, Blanche. How they can take these inanimate things, these inanimate objects that they don't act, they don't think, they don't move, they have no agency. I don't understand how Black neighborhoods become so distraught and so run down, and these homes end up in such a state of disrepair, and that's somehow blamed on people outside of the community. I don't understand that, and I just don't.
So he made a claim here that I've never heard. He said that when the immigrants came over here, they put them all in the Black neighborhoods.
No. As a matter of fact, if you go back, like I said, in the late 1900s, when the fair housing push first began, thanks to the popularization of Jacob Riis's book, How the Other Half Lives. Again, most of the Blacks were still living in the South. There were very few Blacks across the North, as a matter of fact, because many of northern states did not want Blacks resettling in their states. There had been relatively small Black populations in these various northern states, but they didn't want to see huge, large influxes of Blacks in these northern states. And so when a lot of your Eastern and Southern Europeans began making the trek across the Atlantic, those are, to go back to the previous comment, these are these ethnic enclaves that cropped up in the greater New England area. When I say the greater New England, area, I'm talking New York, Connecticut, Philadelphia, Rhode Island, Vermont. This was considered, at the time was considered the greater New England area. Think of in your mind, I don't know if you've ever seen Martin Scorsese's film Gangs of New York.
Yeah.
A lot of the style, the cinematography. There's actually a famous scene in that movie where I can't describe. I only saw Gangs of New York like one time. It's not one of my favorite Scorsese movies, but there's a shot where the camera is like panning down this road, down this street, and you see everyone kind of lined up. Well, that was a deliberate nod to one of Jacob Riis's famous photographs. So because again, these people, these Eastern,
when he was showing all the quote unquote poor people all together when they're about to fight, and it was like all the poor people versus like that one guy that was trying to take over. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Where it was like Black, Irish, everybody was all lined up, ready to fight. Yeah.
Yeah. So those were the quote unquote ethnic communities that this person is talking about again, and they were in the these urban areas. I mean, that was the first wave of migration after, I guess, around about the midpoint of the 19th century. During the time and after of the Civil War, as well. Again, you had a lot of voluntary migration coming from Eastern and Southern Europe, a lot of Eastern Jews, a lot of Southern Europeans, so on and so forth. And these are the areas that they settled in. And so your quote unquote ghettos, right? These ethnic communities, because these were considered ethnic peoples because they weren't Anglicans. They weren't Anglican speaking. Even when you had people who came over from the greater British Empire, because of course the British Empire began as the English Empire, then it later became the British Empire when it incorporated Scotland, Ireland, Scotland, England. This was the British Empire, and of course its colonial subsidiaries. But you had certain segments within the wider British Empire that did not, commingle with one another. We're all familiar with the historic rivalries and conflicts between the Irish and the English, right? The Irish had been subjugated by England for a very long time. To bring up another movie, that's what the movie Braveheart was about, and the legend of William Wallace and all that stuff. But so the English has subjugated the Scots and the Welsh, the Gaelic speaking folks of Ireland for centuries. And so when the Irish people again came and the Scottish people came, these people were considered ethnic, quote unquote, because they weren't Anglo-Saxons.
So he said basically the ethnic Europeans were forced into the black neighborhoods, and then when black folks tried to leave, they were denied. And he said it was deliberate, and it still happens to this day.
I mean, I just don't know what to say. You know, the black people who could afford to leave, they left. If you want to move somewhere, I mean, that's where you went. And again, I do not understand. You notice that, and this person will probably be the first person that will claim that, ain't nobody better than me, ain't nobody superior to me, and so on and so forth, right? The white man ain't better than me. But again, and I don't understand. He's implying that whites are, for some reason or another, better because when they cluster together, they create better living accommodations and better communities, safer communities, more desirable communities. Why? Why? And then what'll happen is they'll just move the goalposts, and then they'll come up with an entirely new conspiracy to explain why the black neighborhoods were this way. It's the people. The people make up the culture. The people comprise the neighborhood. They will be the ultimate determining factor in terms of what the neighborhood is going to look like. Not only what the neighborhood is going to look like, but how much the real estate is going to be worth, and that's of course not accounting for the value of the land, which is again a totally separate issue. Land costs and housing costs, two totally separate issues.
Well, it's kind of funny that they used to blame crack for messing up the black neighborhoods, but now they're saying the black neighborhoods are messed up before the crack, but they don't. But they can't tell you how they got messed up before the crack. So now we see before crack, black folks were trying to escape the black neighborhood. They were trying to escape the hood.
That's what I'm saying. But I thought black folk. I thought what we needed was unity. I thought what we needed was to stick together. I thought the problem was that there's too many sellouts, too many people want to be white adjacent, or all these stupid scholarly terms. I thought that was the problem. Now you're telling me that going back to the 1930s, when black folks were forced to live together, it was a problem. But now, all of a sudden, fast forward 100 years later, it's what we need. You know what I mean? We need more black collectivity. We need more black, we need more ethnic Marxism.
We need more black spaces.
I don't understand.
Hold on, let me. This guy, Segus, wrong. I'm from Oakland, and for decades, the adjacent city, San Leandro, had city ordinances that didn't allow blacks to buy or even rent in the city. Cut it out.
Man. Listen, Blanche, if you got it so made up in your mind, what Segus doesn't realize or doesn't see to what it admit is that blacks, on average, they're not as finesse. Why do people automatically assume that there is going to be perfect racial parity with respect to outcome distributions? Groups of people act differently, and they acquire and amass separate outcomes because they make different decisions. If it is made to look like black people are being kept out of something, that just simply means they display cultural patterns and traits that allow them that afford them very similar outcomes in the housing market and in other areas of social life as well. But again, this is not a black white issue, and the reason why this is because we saw the effects of when the government said, okay, well, here's what we'll do. We'll try to rig the game, rig the system to assist low, middle, what they call them middle to low income applicants. Will come up with these creative mortgage packages that led to a great calamity by the year 2008. Once Congressman Barney Frank and Senator Christopher Dodd of Connecticut. I believe Barney Frank was a congressman from the state of Massachusetts, if memory serves me correctly. And they came up with this plan. And then even you had, and this was even bipartisan, because you even had the president of the United States that began, at the time, George W. Bush began threatening Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to sort of better balance their investment portfolios to assure that they purchased these mortgages that were very insecure, because they pretty much knew that these people were not good candidates for repayment. And it caused an international, a near international economic collapse, because mortgages are packaged, right? Let me just explain this real quick, because I know at some point someone's going to probably bring up Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Hold
Well,
on.
Fannie Mae and Freddie. Go ahead.
JB Chanel said, if what the guy said was true, then where are the lawsuits?
Listen, there was a lawsuit, I think, back in 2000. Last time I heard of one, this was like back in 2013. Somebody had sued, tried to make a claims. It said something about redlining or whatever. But yeah, man, where are the lawsuits? Where are the people coming in and complaining and saying? Again, bro, I can guarantee you that, especially the way things are so streamlined. Again, this is another way. Let me just briefly talk about this real quick, because again, the federal government did everything within its power. And of course, the politicians are all for this, because of course they are made to look like the folks who are providing people with homes. They're giving out all these freebies and whatnot. Of course, this helps politicians because it helps them win votes. And then they can set up a kind of patronage system where they handpick certain industries and certain groups of businesses within certain industries for this kind of patronage. And in return, they get financial and political support. So we see what happens when the federal government begins picking winners and losers. So to go back to the 1930s, right around this time, we saw the Federal Housing Authority in 1937. They're the ones who oversaw the public housing, the projects. They're the ones who oversaw the public housing experiment, the Federal Housing Authority, right? In 1938, the following year, is when we saw the establishment of Fannie Mae. I think Freddie Mac came some years later, quite a while later. But Fannie Mae, it's like some people think that the Fannie Mae, like sort of like the Federal Reserve, where it's federal, but not really. Fannie Mae is private, but it's government sponsored, in that it kind of has the backing and the support of the federal government. In other words, it has the backing and the support of the taxpayers, which is why lenders are now more willing to extend, because what a bank does, what a credit union does, or bank, is when they give a loan, when they say, okay, people come in, they apply for a loan, they either want to purchase a home or they want to refinance a home. I saw a lot of great comments in the comment section last week too, by the way. I couldn't read everything, it was in real time, but I did rewatch the show we had last week, and then I watched some of the comments. A lot of good commentary in there. There's a lot of things. People were bringing up a home equity loans. They're called HELOCs, right? It's a lot of acronyms in the mortgage industry. A lot of people were bringing up the LTV, which means loan to value rates. And there's a lot of smart people in the comment section who know this business and know what they're talking about. But to go back to Freddie Mac, so what happens is, what a mortgage company does is,
Fannie Mae first, right?
Right, correct. What a mortgage company does is a mortgage company will lend you, money to buy a home. And what they'll do is they won't wait. So, for example, a fixed rate conventional mortgage has a standard 30-year loan term, right? That's the life of the loan. It'll
Uh-huh.
take you approximately 30 years to pay it back. A mortgage company, Blanche, is not going to wait 30 years for you to pay them back with interest so they can make profit. They're just not going to wait. What they do is, Blanche, is they sell your loan. They package your loan in the form of a financial security or some kind of stock or some kind of bond, and they invest it. Someone else purchases the loan because they're banking on the long term. So, for example, if I say, all right, man, Blanche, if you lend me $10, let's make it simple. I know you understand this. If you lend me $10 and I say, bro, I'll pay you back with interest 1%, right? 1% of $10 is what, $1, right? So I'll pay you back $11 or something like that, right? But if say I'll give it to you in a week, right? But the longer it takes me to pay you back the principal plus that 1% interest, which is that extra dollar, I just continue to compile interest. So what happens is the longer the loan remains active, the more you pay, the more the lender makes in return, but it's a long-term investment and it's greater risk for more reward because they get more money over the long term.
Yeah.
Now, you can say, well, I will take this. I would much rather get the money up front, but not as much and be done with it. That's what lenders do. They give you money to purchase with them, all type of big ticket items that you need to go to a bank for, because most people don't have that much money to just hand over. Again, like a home, one of the largest purchases you'll make. Normal people, right? We ain't buying yachts and private jets and stuff like that, right? But my point is, they don't want to wait 30 years because the mindset is so much can change economically. So much can change in a person's personal life. You could lose your job, people die, they get injured, things happen, unforeseen circumstances take place, right? And so they say, we're not waiting that long. So investors come in with guidelines. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are mortgage investors. They look at the mortgage portfolio of these lenders and then they pick and choose and they decide which mortgages they want to purchase so that they can sell them on the stock exchange as a security. That's how that works. And so when a lender said, all right, we'll go with, that's because that they know that they ain't gonna have to wait 15, 20, 30 years to
Right.
get to receive repayment. They'll just
Right.
sell your mortgage to an investor.
So
So
they'll take a short on the profit
yeah,
just to get the guaranteed money and
just to
just
get the
sell it.
guarantee
Yeah.
and get it over with. That's how
Yeah.
that works. That's how
So
that
Chuck,
works.
it sounds like what you're saying is a lot more intricate than just I don't want black folks to live anywhere else in the city. Like it's a lot that go and again, we're talking about money. There's a lot that goes into purchasing a home as far as the people that you don't see. Now, you have your agent, obviously, real estate agent, but beyond that, there are many hands involved. And just to say that we don't want you living here, it's kind of difficult to even try because the manpower it would take to keep people out of all of these neighborhoods would be insane. Think about a nationwide program to keep black people out of neighborhoods. You know how much hours like to you have to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb to see, okay, who purchased this loan? That's crazy. It's just, I don't know. It doesn't seem realistic.
But let me tell you what I remember I was telling you last week about some of the crazy things I've come across in this business. For example, like the Scrapping Beauty was making a lot of good comments in the comment section last week, and she just said something here. She said it's all about your spending habits, and that's true. I'll give you some examples. I'll tell you what the decision that people just do dumb stuff. I'll give you an example. That's and I talked about last week how owning a home is an expense, and when people talk about owning a home being the ticket to the middle class. It's a ticket toward building generational wealth. They're talking about cashing in on home equity, and you can cash in on home equity through refinance transactions. You can cash in on home equity through selling your property. But there's goods and there's bad. When you sell it, it's gone. When if you can refinance it, but when you refinance, you may, again, you can there are two, and I told myself I didn't want to get too particular, talk about the science of it and talk about the details of mortgage lending, but it's important because you don't talk about it. You have people making these unsubstantiated false claims online and misleading people. So there's two primary types of mortgage refinance. You have a rate and term refinance. You have a cash out refinance. Most people try to qualify for a cash out refinance if they have excessive amounts of equity, which would amount to an 80% loan to value ratio. I don't, again, it get too complicated. I want to explain all that, but you have, like I said, I talked about the refinance last week. Like I said, you cannot utilize your equity if your collateral is bad, because I've said it 1,000 times last week. Owning a home is an expense. I saw the Scrap and Beauty make a comment last week. She said that some of the worst homes that she's seen are homes that people inherit, and that's true. And I've seen it. People say, well, we need to, for real estate and purchase, we need to buy homes, and these homes are just completely tore apart. I've seen it myself. So I talked about that last week, about how people don't have the finances because they make bad spending decisions, and they cannot utilize their equity because they have bad home, they have bad collateral. I see people do stuff this stupid. So when you purchase a home, I'm sorry, not when you apply for a mortgage, you get, say if you're trying to purchase a home, you get pre-approved, you got to go through a process. Buying a home could take anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. You're still in the process. Once a mortgage lender, Blanche, once they pull your credit, right, and they'll say, all right, cool, you qualify. They got your date to act. They have your income to debt ratio, locked in, so they know how much you can spend on a monthly mortgage payment, because they know how much you pay in other bills. And that's not to mention the stuff that they can't quantify, like leisure stuff, how much money you spend on groceries or gas or clothes you buy. They don't know about that. The only thing they know about is what's on your credit report. So when you're going through the process, from the time you first interact with that mortgage lender, from the time you close on that loan, anything you do, that mortgage lender gets notified. Because if the circumstances change from the time you interface with them and they pull your credit and you hand over your documents, your W-2s and all that stuff, so they can know how much money you make and all of that, once they pull that information, you got to be on your best behavior. You hear what I'm saying? I've seen people have about to refinance, they about to get a cash out refinance, they about to walk away. Sure, they're gonna have a new mortgage, but a mortgage payment that they can manage, but they finna get $300,000 up front. I don't know, something nice. I've seen people a week before closing get hit, and all of a sudden that alert comes in, and we said, man, what the heck? What happened? New line of credit opened. Said, man, what the heck are you doing? Well, yeah, I knew that I was finna come into this money, so I went and bought me a new truck.
Hold on. Time out. You mean to tell me they're buying? Hold up. So before they get it, it's already spent.
They already spending money. That's because look, you have people who are on the right on that clip, where their debt to income rate, say if they qualify for a conventional fixed rate mortgage. Like I said, once you hit 50%, we got to figure out a way. You have to knock that down. A lender will start telling you, okay, well, can you got a credit card payment here. You pay about $100 a month on this credit card. Can you get that paid off? Because your debt to income ratio is at 50% right now. If you get rid of that, it'll dip down just enough to where we can still qualify you. Can you pay that off? I've seen people who be right at that clip These geniuses will go and they will go and buy a new car in the middle of a mortgage, middle of a mortgage process, and
Why?
just completely shatter their debt to income ratio. And the loan can't go through. The loan has to be suspended because they no longer qualify. And I didn't know. I see it.
Oh, goodness.
They just can't. I'm like, just wait. Well, what are you doing? Bruh, people make bad financial decisions. There's so much the human element, bro. It's just so much to it,
And
man. It's
so,
just
I'm glad you brought that up, Chuck, because they paint this picture as if the only reason Black people aren't getting homes is because of racism.
no.
And I'm like, well, I live in Atlanta, right? Where this is where all the ballers live. And these Black people, they balling. So they got the houses. I mean, I seen it. I seen it. So I don't know where y'all live, but where I live, Black people have no problem living where they want to live, barely hanging on, living check to check. I knew somebody got a place. She was supposed to have saved up some money, didn't save it up, ended up getting a place, and she said after everything was paid, she had $300 left a month. That's it. Every month, that's all she had. And I'm
Wow.
thinking to myself, but why would you want to? You could have got a smaller place, a lot cheaper, but why'd you want to live in this big old town? It's just you. Why? Like, I don't know, man. It's just crazy to me. I'm
Well,
like, dude, why?
yeah, and the reason why, like a lot of like we saw in the 90s when Barney Frank, I mean, he was the main crusader. Frank and Dodd. If you know anything about the housing crisis of the 2000s, Dodd Frank are the main two culprits that always come up. And the reason why you had a lot of these folk who were in these homes, these big giant homes, and we saw everything that happened at the time, was because of housing developers, construction, not construction companies, but developers, house developers, housing developers. In order for them to make profit, of course, they must sell the home, but first and foremost, they must invest in the land. Right? They have to purchase the land, then they construct the home, right, and then and they sell it. Well, when you get your homeowner's insurance, your insurer will provide you with a cost of replacement, right? And essentially, when it becomes, because you have two types of property, you have real property, you have personal property. Real property is property that is affixed to the land. I think I may have even mentioned this last week, or what we call real estate or real property, right? It's stuck to the land. But what you pay in property taxes is essentially a land lease fee, right? That's the price you pay to essentially lease the land. All right. Uh, when when you like I said, when you pay your monthly mortgage, you have your principal, interest, tax, and insurance. And oftentimes the amount of money that you would have paid over the course of the loan, you can't recoup that from an insurance payment if your home ends up being a complete loss in the event of a fire. That's what I mean when I say cost of replacement. Because insurance companies, if now this is another key, it also depends upon zoning restrictions, because some homes, in the event that they're completely destroyed, depending on the zoning restrictions that oversee the area, homes may, because some homes are grandfathered in, right? They call those legal non-conforming homes. Some homes, if they're destroyed, even if you have insurance, Blanche, they can't be rebuilt because they no longer fit the zoning restrictions. And most of the time, of course, mortgage lenders, they're not going to lend you monies to purchase or refinance a home if it doesn't meet zoning restrictions, if the zoning regulations or whatever, if the home itself isn't legal. Okay. So sometimes the insurer, they'll say, man, your home is worth, I don't know, bro, $500,000, let's just say. And then you say, but wait a minute, but that's not, I mean, that may be enough to rebuild the same house or rebuild something of equal value, but that doesn't account for the leasing fees that it costs me to build a home on this parcel of land, because the because the insurer only insures the home. They don't care about the value of the land.
Right.
So you mess around, you still may take a loss. But the reason why I bring that up is because you had all these folks, all of a sudden these banks and these lenders, they just throwing out money, like Oprah, you get a house, you get a house, you get a house. Why? Because banking, Blanche, all these people who talk, oh, man, it's, black people, they do it. Banking is one of the most heavily regulated industries, if not the most heavily regulated industry in the country. Lenders were essentially threatened into doing this. They were forced to do this, right? Essentially at the point of a gun, figuratively speaking, right? So they're throwing us, hey, you get a house, you get a house, you get a house. And so guess what happened as all of this stuff was going on? Housing prices continued to rise because demand went up, because so many people were buying homes and fewer new homes were being built because of artificially inflated land costs due to all sorts of government regulations that restricts land use. So what did people start doing, Blanche? This is when everybody started rushing into the speculation game. What is real estate speculation? Essentially, it's a fancy way of saying house flipping. Because what the lender would offer you, Blanche, typically, if you want to live in a home and you want a good, safe, secure mortgage, you go with a fixed rate conventional. Even with that, your monthly mortgage costs are going to increase, because the only thing that a fixed mortgage does, it locks in your interest rate. But it does not lock in your property tax and your insurance fee. Your mortgage payments still may increase, but they introduced this fancy thing back in the 90s and the early 2000s, this fancy thing called ARMs. That's an acronym for adjustable rate mortgages. So what that means is, Blanche, I may give you a loan and say the first 6 months, you pay, I don't know, 2% interest. Oh, that ain't bad. What's that? That's about 600 a month for a 4,000 square foot home for 5,000 a month. I got that. They but be warned, it's an adjustable rate. So throughout the course of the loan, your rate is going to fluctuate.
Usually up.
It's usually up.
Yeah.
So you go from $500 a month, all of a sudden, you got to pay $1,000 a month. And then after that, and the year later, it's $1,500 a month. After that, it's $2,000 a month. This is where all these foreclosures came from. So this is what the real estate speculators began doing, right? They began purchasing homes because adjustable rate mortgages were extremely easy to get. Because, and again, this is how the lenders protected themselves from defaults, because they had to come up with these fancy mortgage packages, because they were giving money. They were trying to give loans to people who had no credit, no assets, working at Burger King. You know what I mean? And they want to buy a house. Like, you can't afford one, but the government is over your back looking, saying, you know what I mean? So because that was the cost of live, right? Equal fair housing, right? Housing for low, medium, and low income applicants. Okay. So real estate speculators said, "Oh, I'll take an arms loan." And what real estate flippers were doing is they were purchasing a home, waiting until the value of the home increased, and then they would sell it. You have people, Blanche, and you remember we lived through it back in the 90s, the early 2000s.
Behind that. Listen, Chuck, I know folks that went to prison behind that, messing with them houses. People went to prison. I know people did 3 to 5 years quote unquote flipping houses. I said, man, y'all crazy.
Yeah, because you got people who you got some appraisers who
Yeah, the
scam.
appraisers was in on it.
The,
They was in
the
on it.
appraisers
Yeah.
were in on it. Yep, they
Yep.
overly inflating the value of these homes. That homes ain't worth that much money. All this stuff was going on, and then it got to a point where all of a sudden you start seeing this wave of defaults. Boom, 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 boom. And what happens when homes default? They go into foreclosure. It lowers the property value. Foreclosures lowers property value. And contrary to popular belief, lenders are not realtors. They don't want your property. They want your money. I know people say, well, it's fiat. It's just currency. It's just well, that's the business that they're in, right? Their asset is it's currency. They're not trading in gold. They're not trading in silver or this or that. You know what I mean? They want the money. And so they don't want you to foreclose. When a lender has to seize your property, they're trying to get rid of it as quickly as they can because they're not in the business of home selling.
Short sell. We're going to short sell this thing.
They're going to short sell. They want to get rid of it. So in order to incentivize, right? So a quick purchase, a fast purchase, the value of the home is like nearly cut in half, right?
Fact.
And so you saw these wave of defaults. The real estate speculators or the house flippers was sitting there. And I have people I've spoken to who owned 7, 8 houses at one time and were just flipping them, making money, hand over fist. Some people, there are a lot of people that became millionaires doing this. But it was an artificial bubble that the government had created. And once it burst, home values decreased, and you had all these real estate flippers that were stuck with all these homes, and it was just worth nothing. Foreclosure after foreclosure after foreclosure, man.
Hold on, Chuck. Let me hold on. Let me get to this video. Hold on, because I want you to. Hold on, me.
And this guy, why you queuing that up, Blanche? This guy, it's like he live in California, and it's funny because California, Blanche, nearly by itself, California. I mean, you talk about just cancer, malignant tumor, just on the country right now. Because California nearly, it was California that caused this massive ripple effect. Like I said last week, there is no such thing as a national housing market, right? Housing markets are local. Like, for example, the housing market in Los Angeles is not the same housing market in Houston. You know, Texas, if you look at Texas, has some of the nicest, most well-kept, beautiful homes you get for a good, nice, decent price because there are very little, if any, zoning restrictions in the state of Texas. So the home values in Texas are not artificially increased by punitive zoning restrictions. That's not so much the case in California. It is hard for first-time home buyers to purchase a home in California, as we mentioned last week, because what trips up a lot of home buyers is the down payment. They don't have the funds for the down payment. Most people use the proceeds from a real estate sale to put down on a new home, but you have to own a home in order to sell a home. And so it's like, right, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And so it was really a lot of California muckraking and political demagoguery that really kind of pressured the whole of the nation, the whole of the country to get in on this whole scam. Because you only saw these serious housing issues in the state of California. To some extent, it was in Phoenix, Tucson, and some other places, some of these other counties. But you only have about a handful of counties that caused this gigantic ripple effect that almost caused an international depression. California did it by itself. It's quite a, it's quite a man. When I tell you, you're talking about 1,100 square, and a lot of these homes in these nicer areas in California, some of these nicer counties. I mean, Los Angeles County is probably the most expensive county in the country.
Or the
But
Bay Area.
yeah, you know, and like the Bay Area, San Jose has some very high real estate prices. But you're talking 1,100 square foot homes with no basement. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a living room, a kitchen, and you're talking $1.5 million.
San
And
Francisco.
these very same houses, Blanche, were worth $100,000 30 years ago.
San Francisco, it could be a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, no backyard, driveway is your front yard, 2.5 million. And it's
Yes,
just
sir.
say you
Yep.
got a house.
Just to say you got a house, man.
Let me we got a scholar about to speak here. Hold on.
I bought a house in a neighborhood that is predominantly black. I bought my house 7 years ago for $47.50 per square foot, which is pretty close to half of what it would cost to build a home the same size. So why was it so cheap? There was one land prospector that bought up properties. He bought up thousands of properties. He left these buildings abandoned and intentionally let them get run down so that the whole neighborhood looks terrible. That land process.
Let me stop right here. Let me stop. First of all, hold up. The reason why he was able to buy so many properties, Genius, is because it was already run down. It was already dilapidated. That's why they were so cheap. He didn't let them get run down. That's why he purchased them. He wasn't okay. Go ahead. Let me wind a little bit.
Because like you said, Blanche, Paul, before you get started, because like I said, if they weren't ran down, then he wouldn't have been able to buy them for so cheap. And he's the one who would take a massive loss, because of course he would see a dip in the value of the real estate. So yeah, why would he do that? Why would he destroy his own investment?
$47.50 per square foot, which is pretty close to half of what it would cost to build a home the same size. So why was it so cheap? There was one land prospector that bought up properties. He bought up thousands of properties. He left these buildings abandoned and intentionally let them get run down so that the whole neighborhood looks terrible. That land prospector drove the housing prices into the ground, because if he can own a large enough area, he can get the city to eminent domain it and pay him for those properties. That one land prospector owned most of the properties in this area, and the city eminent domained it. They paid him for those properties, and they tore down all of the houses, forced everybody else out. And I always hear people say, well, why can't black people take care of their neighborhoods? But what they don't know is that most of those properties all belong to the same white guy.
Chuck, what he said made absolutely 0 sense. What he just said doesn't even make the reason. First of all, the properties that he purchased, you said were vacant. So that means nobody was living there. And if they were vacant, we're going to assume they weren't vacant in pristine condition. They were vacant and they was ran down, which is why we said earlier he was able to buy all this quote unquote property to get the city to eminent domain it. But apparently it was already eminent domain because nobody living there. Nobody was living in the area. So
yeah. I mean, surely wasn't owned by the federal government. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, the federal government it's weird. I mean, I don't know if there's probably an appraisal process to determine the clause in the law when it uses the term just compensation. I always thought, well, what is meant by just compensation, right? That the government has the legal right to seize your property, but the government has to pay you just compensation. When he said that I don't know, I can't remember the term he used. Did he say force the government or act? He deliberately
he basically, because he wasn't keeping up the properties, he forced the city to label it as eminent domain and then pay him. I'm like, first of all, how much is the city going to give you for some ran down property? So in other words, what I'm saying is he could have paid, say he paid $1,000 per property. They're not going to give him $1,500 per property, $2,000 per property. They're not going to. He's not going to make a profit off of the city person. This is dumb.
Hey, the third, if you're going to purchase a property for cheap, if you want a return on your investment, it's just simple math, right? You want more than what it is you put into it. What you walk away with is your profit. How do you buy cheap real estate? You don't improve it, and that somehow forces the government to seize your property and pay you just compensation for something that you just allowed to fall into disrepair. How does that benefit you in any way? Oh, I get it, because it just simply prevents Black people from owning the land, right? That's how Black people remain poor and all the other bull crap. Okay, I got it. So it's some mysterious white guy somewhere who owns the whole community. That's why that's why the hood is so ran down. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, the level of paranoia and the conspiracy theories, bro.
That's what it is. It's conspiracy theories brought about by paranoia. It's not even a conspiracy theory that's even linked to anything substantial. It's just we believe they don't want Black folks to live here, so we just gonna start making up stuff. But at the end of the day, Chuck, he said the guy purchased vacant properties. That means nobody's living there. So if he's buying up large areas where nobody is living, and the city's not going to come and pay that man, they're gonna pay. Listen, if he spent $1,000 per property, they're gonna come in at 500, if that. They hold on, Chuck. They may just say, you know what, this area right here, eminent domain, we ain't got to pay you nothing.
Exactly, because I know telling. I don't trust the government when it comes to just compensation. The government, like I said, they may mess around, move in, and say we ain't paying you a dime.
Right.
We want it. We taking it. I mean, it's not to say that you couldn't. I don't know. Try to file suit and see if you can. But again, bro,
they might label the area a historic site. They can do anything. Like, come on, it's like,
But, so. Like you say, man, it's just paranoia, man. It's just this Black folks with this persecution complex, and you have this weak, soft, fingernails painted, liberal sitting there, and this dumb, goofy Black dude sitting there pointing at him like he's saying something. I mean, I don't know, bro. And this is the stuff that goes viral, I guess.
Oh yeah, no, that went viral. I got another one.
Claude Addison was saying that the black dollar is the only dollar that does not circulate a couple of times among black hands. You know what I'm saying? He goes to the Korean for the beauty shop. He goes here. He goes to a restaurant downtown, fine dining. He always goes outside the Black community.
That's right. Segregation, can it lead to Jim Crow?
Well, what's Jim Crow, by the way?
Jim Crow, laws were like laws back color purple days.
That's what they're trying to go.
Color purple days.
Oh, okay.
But it was not too long after slavery, which almost was like an extension of slavery. You're not slaves anymore, but you're not really free because Jim Crow got hold of you.
Oh, okay.
Segregation comes from Jim Crow.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's all of that is just post-slavery stuff to just let you know you got out of the frying pan, but you ain't out of the pot. You know what I'm saying? So it's a slippery slope. But I mean, the Black Wall Street thing is interesting if money actually really stayed within the community, but
it can't.
Yeah, and not just that, and because of how we shop online.
It's not that. It's just our mindset.
But you're gonna shop Black businesses online.
How do you know?
Black business.
But that's what I'm saying. Like the
Black
whole thing,
business
like
don't boom because we keep Black people pocket watch Black people.
Yeah. Well, so I just wanted to play that because I'm sorry. Hold up. I wanted to play that, Chuck, because this is how Black people discuss economics.
That's why I'm laughing. That's why I'm laughing.
This is how Black people decide. So imagine these people coming up with these conspiracy theories about what the white man is doing to keep the Black man down. And I'm gonna say this: the reason why the black dollar does not stay in the quote unquote black community is because what black folks actually need, they need the hood. The hood doesn't provide it.
Exactly. There's no services.
There's no, so I'm like, so that's why they're forced. And then if there is a black, I don't know if I've been to a black owned grocery store. I know Atlanta has one now where they got a city owned grocery store. They just foolishness, but I've been to a black owned grocery store, and if you're going in there to find your favorite items, you can forget it. If you're going in there to make a meal that's not traditional, forget it. If you're going into that store trying to get anything but the bare essential basics, you can't forget it.
Listen, man. Yeah, I mean that's what marks the collective wealth of a. I mean, you know, any given collective, you hear, of course, a lot about GDP, right? Gross domestic product. It's not what you have, the amount of money that you have. It's what you produce. There are no services in the quote unquote black community or areas where black folks are largely concentrated because there is a severe lack of human capital. They don't know how to produce anything. And consumers, man, this is why it's so important. People don't understand it. Consumers, the free market system, of course, consumers decide who wins, who loses, who stays in business, and who doesn't. I mean, it's that simple. You want to make it, you want to survive, you provide people with something that they want to buy. It's just that simple. All this talk about wanting the black dollar circulate on what?
Circulate around a George Floyd statue? Like, what's it go? Like, what's the black dollar gonna do, man? I mean,
right? Yeah, and the folks who in the comment section watching this, that clip you just showed, man, that's why I'm laughing, because this is the kind of stereotypical at the gym, in the locker room, or at the barber shop, or at the cookout when you're around. And you can imagine somebody in my position, someone in Blanche's position. You just got to sit there like a fly on the wall and listen to people engage and say some of the dumbest things. And you're just like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I can't, you know, when somebody is so far removed from reality, it's like, if I were to even try to get to explain something to you, you couldn't even begin to comprehend the basics, I don't pretend to be the smartest person in the world, but just like simple terms, I can't even have a conversation with you above, that's like on the level, because you're so lost, you're so gone. I don't even know I don't know what to say to you. I don't know the first thing to say to people like that.
And it's crazy, Chuck, because the guy started talking about the black dollar not circulating, and even their response was racism. And I'm like, how is Jim Crow and segregation and slavery causing you all to not spend in your community? It doesn't even make any sense. You either want to buy black or you don't. So what black folks don't want to admit, Chuck, is that not only is the quality not going to be there, not only is it going to be overpriced, but it's also going to be given to you with an attitude. So like, there's no way you win buying black. It's just you just don't.
Yeah, attitude. There's a safety issue. I know this conversation isn't about crime and what. I'm serious, right, man. People, that is the fastest way to drain a community of its most valuable resource, which is its human capital, is danger, right? Threats to one's a person, and it just, that's the first thing. The first thing you can talk about, the black dollar not circulating and so on and so forth. You have to provide the people who actually want to do better, right, to begin figuring things out for themselves. But you have to remove those disruptions from around them. It's just the same sort of scenario we saw in Lean On Me when Joe Clark came in and he gathered up all the troublemakers on the stage and threw them out of the school. It was his first order of action. That has to happen literally in every single solitary, predominantly Black area, round up every single solitary felon, repeat offender, people out on bail, out on parole. I need them off the streets, out of the community immediately. But of course, Blanche, you know just as well as I do, right? What happens is the folks who will say, well, those elements don't represent me, right? They close rank. They turn into a racial issue, and they're the ones who provide cover and provide
Yeah.
excuses for those individuals because all they need is a fair chance, or we need to get to the root cause of the problem, or there's always these highbrow intellectual explanations for the simplest of things. The simplest of things. It's not that complicated. It takes someone who's educated. I think I was talking to Chad about some similar to this earlier, but I said it takes a so-called intellectual who has the requisite skill in his style of oratory and his ability to engage in this kind of rhetorical dexterity that would give them that provides them with the ability to make excuses for failure. You see, because that's the thing, the catch-22 about so-called intellectuals, so-called smart people, is that they think they know more than the collective wisdom of mankind. And that's what they do. Instead of revealing the truth, they obstruct it because that's what their talent allows them to do. They're so intellectual that they can come up with creative ways to make excuses for failure.
And make it, and I'm talking about it, make it sound brilliant.
And make it sound, yeah. Yeah.
Let me
But why people don't know what they listen? White people only. How you gonna tell me to love these sports thing every day when I was black man work the first Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Yeah. No Thursday, you working for Community. He goes to death to rest. And he goes to a what? So why is it the black people don't own the land where they live?
Oh my goodness. Oh boy.
I mean, listen, Chuck, I find these videos, and these videos are so like, it's just they're not just viral, it's the commentary in the video. People keep saying black folks waking up. I said, man, black folks are one step outside of being cavemen and cave women. I'm serious, because the comments on this video, Chuck, on all of them, I'm like, do y'all hear what this man just said? This man just said, I have to be a functioning adult and pay for where I live. I got to pay my bills. And then on the weekend, instead of saving the money, Chuck, no, I ain't gonna save it. Instead, think about it. You would think I would save it because I'm so tied down financially. I'd want to hoard every penny I had left over. No. I want to go out there and get drunk to the point where the police got to lock me up. Now I'm in jail.
Like, white courts, but you ain't got no choice but to get drunk.
Now I gotta go to the pawn shop. Now I gotta go to the loan shark. I'm like, all that, listen, Chuck, all of that from going out drinking. Oh, I don't know. It's crazy.
Listen, man, he ain't got no choice but to get drunk, I guess, because he's so stressed. Because I wrote down here, he said the property exploits him. That was his. Those are his words exactly. The process. Well, how in the world does the property exploit you? First of all, I mentioned this last week. Of course, Harlem used to be all white. I mean, this was before about turn of the 20th century, because of course that area there used to be Harlem. I think was once upon a time was called New Amsterdam, if I'm not mistaken. Its original spelling, because it's a Harlem. I think it's a Dutch word. It used to be 2 A's in it, like Harlem. I can't pronounce. I don't spell. I ain't gonna try.
That's
But
how the Muslims say it. Halam.
yeah. So blacks came in. Blacks, bought up Harlem, uptown, right, Manhattan. They bought it up. And this guy, and this, we didn't even talk about this. This is another way to utilize real estate for profit making and generational wealth building, right? You can become a landlord, and it's like this guy. I mean, he's upset with the landlord because and never mind. I mean, because it's funny, bro. Because it's 2 E's. Okay. I don't know if Rick being funny, but I know Harlem. It kind of has a weird
I think
spelling.
he sounds like Halim.
Right.
Halim.
Anyway, but it's funny all this attack on landlords, bro. And a landlord is nothing more than a small business owner. The amount of risk that the landlord assumes, and to listen to this guy, and I mean, could you imagine renting to him?
Oh my goodness!
Right?
He'd be one of your worst tenants. Like he'd be. Oh my goodness!
Right. He's your renter. He's in your property. Right? That's your. It belongs to you. I could never go into. I could never be a landlord. I don't know, bro. I have to flip that property quick. I don't want it. I can't deal with that. Yeah, these people assume the risk, and in so doing, they provide you with safe, adequate shelter because you can't afford to purchase a home on your own. Okay, you can't. The only state which allows you to take out a mortgage on an apartment unit is New York, if I'm not mistaken. But other than that, you can't take out a mortgage on an apartment unit, but you can take out a mortgage on different types of condos and whatnot. Condo, you take out a mortgage on your unit, but the building is owned by the condo company, whatever. So I'm just like, it's funny to hear him talk and say this stuff about landlords, because see, this is the problem. These are the folks and these are the individuals. It's just like any other business. It's just like any other industry. Much of the things that we utilize on a day-to-day basis that we take for granted are here to us. They're provided to us. We purchase them at prices that we can afford because someone else took it upon themselves to assume the risk that we ourselves, the ones who provide patronage for one reason or another, were not willing to take. Someone had to take a risk, and it is for that reason that we, the consumers, reward them for their service to us. That's what a landlord does. Landlords are the ones who actually do provide adequate housing for the people who cannot afford to purchase their own homes. It's not the landlord's fault. But guess what? Many of times, if not, most of the time, these landlords, their payment to the lender is contingent upon whether or not the renter right, pays their rent, right? And so they're waiting on money from you so that they can pay back the mortgage company because they still own on the home or the condo or whatever it may be that you're living in. It's unfortunate, right? They assume all the risk and they got to put up with your tail.
And what's crazy is that when I did rent years ago, I had a white lady in the beginning by herself. I'm talking about paid on time, no problems. Couple of years, no problem. She moved out. I take a suggestion from a family friend to, let their niece or somebody move in, and the white tenant versus the black tenant, night and day. White tenant paid on time, nothing was ever broke. Black tenant didn't pay on time, something always broke. It was night and day.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up selling because it's a headache. If you don't have a good tenant, it's going to be a constant. It's a headache. It's just like babysitting. I don't know. So
Man, and there's no pride in ownership either, Blanche. There's no pride in ownership. It's not theirs. They don't care. Most people, I know last week, hold that thought, but I know you was right in the middle of a stream of consciousness. I just want to just mention briefly, we talked about HOAs last week, and I said there are some benefits to HOAs. It's a preference. Some people prefer HOAs or like them. Some people don't. HOAs do have, because you do have to pay a monthly or quarterly fee, annual fee, or however they collect. If you don't pay your HOA. HOAs are legally allowed to place a lien on your home. So your HOA can take your property from you if you don't pay your dues and whatnot. But some HOA, they don't allow renters.
HOA can take your property.
Yeah, they can place a lien on your home. Some HOAs, they don't allow renters in the association, right? You can't rent your home to anyone.
Right.
Because renters can potentially lower your property value because people don't want to live in a neighborhood where there are a lot of renters, because they bring a culture with them, and you can safely assume this because if this factor wasn't present, this cultural factor wasn't present, then odds are, right, because leasing a home is far more costly on a month-to-month basis, right? You can take out a mortgage on a similar property that you may rent, and you may pay $1,000 less per month than you would if you were renting, right? So the monthly mortgage payment on a home may be $1,000, but to rent that very same home may be $2,500.
Right.
Right. But a lot of people don't want renters in their neighborhood.
Yes, Chuck, you're right, because the people in my where I live at these townhouses, they started renting out, and you know who they rented to, and it is what it is. And the one of the people live next door, they had the bounty hunters looking for them. They skipped town, and it was some woman down the street, old black lady. She tried to get in my car. She's senile, just walking around looking like a ghost. It's just then they put in like it's crazy. People can say what they want to say, but I'm telling you all now, on average, what I've seen when black people are moving into these areas, it is not good. The best tenants I've seen are probably like single black females. That's like single black females, ages 30 and up. They don't cause any problems. But anything other than that, no.
Yeah. But if you got another clip, before you play it, I just want to circle back to this whole argument about black neighborhoods versus white neighborhoods, and people not wanting black people in white neighborhoods. And so there's this big grandiose conspiracy to block this from happening. You see, we do have something in the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment called people characterize it as freedom of association, right? It doesn't explicitly state that in the First Amendment, but it's sort of implied, right? So in other words, or with that understanding, people for the longest time was of the impression that as an extension of liberty and as an extension of freedom, people have the right, the God-given right to discriminate, right? Your home is only worth what someone is willing to pay for it. If people, for one reason or another, don't want a black neighbor or don't want black people in their neighborhood, then they are free to do so. There's nothing that you can say. There's nothing that you can do about it. They feel that way for whatever reason. Your stock, your social capital is low. People have a certain perception of you, right? And then what so many people have taken to doing is trying to leverage the government to punish people for their opinions, right? And when we talked about restricting the race restrictive covenants last week. Like I say, it ended up violating the equal protection clause because it violated the rights of the seller. It violated the property rights of the seller because they wanted to sell to a black buyer. But if you want to change the perception that people have of you, Blanche, like I said, you still have to exist in the world somewhere. You're living somewhere. Now, what can potentially make your community more desirable? Well, one of the instances that people have and they want to come move into your neighborhood, we talk about gentrification, right? Because they're cheaper property values because you know, you yourself and your whether it's your actions or whether it's just the perception that others have of you because of the color of your skin, because they assume that the color of your skin brings about a certain culture and a certain type of behavior. Well, in a perfect world, people may say, well, I don't want people to think that way. I don't want people to act like that. But even still, that's not really that perfect of a world, is it? Because everyone, for the purpose of self-preservation, has the right to engage in a cost-benefit analysis. Sometimes the benefit is not worth the cost of investigation. I don't know what type of black person this is. All I know is that that's a black person. I don't know anything about them. And sometimes the reward is not worth the cost of investigation. So I'd much rather assume, because that's what makes a lot of folk feel the most comfortable, because they don't have to invest a lot of time in discovery. Because people prefer comfortability, they prefer predictability, so that they can best know how to navigate through this very dangerous life that is rife with all, you know, sorts of peril and dangers. Okay. My question, Black, is whose fault is that, and what exactly do you expect people to do about it? Change the perception that folks have of you by changing on the inside, making the change internally, and maybe perhaps people's perception will change externally. But you can't slight people if they don't want to live, because if and this goes back to the HOA question. Let's just dumb it down a little bit, Blanche, and get off the race thing, right? Like HOAs, and it relates what I'm about to say, because certain HOAs, they put restrictions, for example, on what type of renovations you can make with your home.
Yeah.
Say if you got somebody with some eccentric personality, right? And they think, oh, it'd be nice if I painted my house. You know, what if you had some radical transgender activists and they want to paint their house in the rainbow or something like that? I don't know. Maybe that's a bad example, because maybe that could bring about some type of civil rights litigation or something like that. But let's just say if somebody wanted to make an exterior renovation that violated the terms of the HOA agreement. Yeah. Because if you do something ugly to your home, this was so deep about housing, Blanche, is that it's not you can only control what's on your parcel. But when people look at your home, they're also sold not just on your home, but they have to be sold on the community.
Right.
They have to be sold on the neighbors. They have to be sold on the neighborhood. And what's so unique about the housing market, as opposed to any other industry, is that what someone else does with their property you can't do anything about it, can negatively impact you. So this is what HOAs are for. Nope, you can't paint your house yellow. We've made a decision. We think that's ugly. I like it. Well, we think it's ugly. You can't do that. You can't have this type of fence. You can't have this. You can't have that, because it negatively impacts the market. Thus, it drives down my property value, because people won't want to buy my house because they don't want to live next to a house that looks like that. They don't want to they don't want to buy my house because they see a black neighbor and they just want to keep riding.
But let's be honest, Chuck. it's not that they see a black neighbor. They see somebody black doing something that they are deeming, I don't want to be around the element. Like a black person pulling up from work, going in, that's not what, no. What black folks want to be honest about is how they behave in these social environments. And you mentioned the painting, right? Like where I live, you can't do any exterior renovations. You can do anything to the backyard, but not the front, right?
Okay.
But I know places where you can paint your unit whatever you want to paint it, and the quality is way, listen, for the places you go where they can do what they want to do to the outside, it looks like it looks more run down. It looks, the element is different versus a place where you can't do all those renovations. It looks totally different. It's a whole, it's funny you brought that up because I've seen that in real life. Like, yeah, when you're able to paint the outside of your house, it looks, the people moving in, yeah.
Yeah, and I said, and what do you want the government to do? I mean, I think that I don't know how prevalent it is now. I mean, how it is when appraisers do reports, but there's a list. Anybody, I know we got some realtors, whatever, that follows your content. One realtor follows the both of us. I follow her on Instagram. I forgot how to pronounce her name. I think it's Shalisha. I think her Instagram handle is Shalisha or Shalisha, the realtor, or something like that. We've even had conversations over social media, so I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. She knows she is, so she knows what I'm talking about. When you see these appraisals, there's certain language that appraisers are not allowed to use. Have you ever noticed, like, if you go on an MLS site, right, like Zillow, Realtor.com, there used to be a section. I know there used to be a section on Realtor.com. I know for a fact where if you went to the community section, let's say they'll show you the schools in the area, all types of other stuff. And they used to have a section where they would have a graph, not a graph, but they would have a map, and they would color code the area to show you where all the crime was. They took that off of those websites. So you can't even go on Realtor.com or Zillow.com and go to the community tab on those MLS sites and see where the crime is. They don't even want you to know anymore. When you get an appraisal, there's certain language that the appraiser is not allowed to use. They're not allowed to say certain things like undesired I mean, you would be the level of political correctness and it gets flagged. And when it gets flagged, when the lender catches sight of it, it goes through a system and it gets put into like this. The best way I could describe it is like a computer like database thing. And the person is notified on the other end that the appraiser used a word that's unacceptable, right? It's unacceptable language. You have to go back to the appraiser and tell them to take that word out, because it's seen as it could be leading or discriminatory, right, or whatever. So you have to take certain words out, right? So nowadays, appraiser and appraiser connect, because like I mentioned before, appraisers get audited. They get audited. If they make too many mistakes, or if they get challenged too much on their value opinions and such and so forth, they get run out of the business. They lose contracts. Their management company gets rid of them, such and so forth. Appraisers get audited. They can't just do what they want to do willy-nilly. Okay. Now, whether or not having Black people in your neighborhood drive down the property value is one of those things where it's like one of those unspoken things. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. The appraiser can estimate what the value is, but the only thing that makes the value concrete is when you meet at the closing table at the title company and you sign on the dotted line. Boom, there's your property value. That's how we know. We know how much your home is worth when it sells for that dollar amount. That's how we know. The appraiser can only guess, but the appraiser is not going to put on the report there's a Black family across the street, so that presents an external obsolescence. They're not going to put that on the report. But perhaps the people out in the real world, maybe they know, maybe they don't know. Who knows? But again, it goes back to the example when it comes to exterior renovations or whatever. if there was a time in the United States where racism was more out in the open and people made a decision to say, I don't necessarily have anything against Black people. I don't think they're genetically inferior. I don't think they're incapable. I don't think they're this, or I don't think they're that. But for some reason, there are some people who tend to think that way. And because I'm looking out for myself, I don't think I want a Black person living in my neighborhood because it lowers my property value. I wouldn't mind living next to a Black person. I don't have anything against them, but I'm concerned what other people might think about a Black person living across the street from me, because if they don't want a Black neighbor, then they won't want to purchase my house.
Well,
So that's just how that's the nature of the housing market.
But they're in a bit of a conundrum, Chuck, because on one hand they say we don't care what white people think, but then on the other hand, what white people think is affecting your property value. So you can't have it both ways. So
can't have it both ways.
You have to make a decision either. And again, like Chuck mentioned earlier, when it comes to the quote unquote negative elements of Black culture, you all don't say that's not us. You all don't condemn it. You all don't. I mean, in fact, we're seeing now when Trump is sending in these federal agents, people are like, no, we don't want them to come. So you cried about the crime, but now you're saying the crime is not that bad. It's going down. It's good. So you gotta make your mind up, people. Do you want the perception or not? Because this whole king and queen thing, nobody's buying it. I'm sorry, they're just not. It's not. If the king and queen thing was true, wherever y'all lived, it'd be the hottest things on the market, but it don't work. So
Go ahead. Got
so
some more clip?
Yeah.
Let's get it.
Wonder why every hood looks the same? That's not a coincidence. It was engineered. In the 1930s, the US government drew red lines around Black communities. Banks used those maps to deny home loans, creating ghettos by design. Then came the freeways, built right through the middle of thriving Black neighborhoods. Thousands displaced.
Wait a minute, Chuck. First you said it was redlining and they wouldn't let you get to home. Now you're telling me they built the freeways. Chuck, it can't be both. It can't be both things, man. It can't be a thriving Black community that wasn't allowed to exist because of redlining. You can't have both ways. Come on, man.
Man, like I said, man, the banks, yeah, like I said, the whole redlining thing, all it meant, I repeat for the umpteenth time for people who may just now chiming in or whatever, I don't know. But that's the only thing that governments had control over, right? Is they had control over which mortgages they would insure. Like I said, and having federally backed mortgage insurance just added a little security so that the lender felt a little bit more comfortable extending credit. That's all. Like I said, Black folks just weren't, that's the thing, I said it again, something else I said last week. Just because you ask for something does not mean that you automatically receive it, because it's someone else's money. It's not yours.
Right.
Well, we want to purchase a home, but we need a loan. Well, no, but we want it. I don't care if you want it. It's not yours. It belongs to someone else. Now, I get it. When you put your money in the bank, banks, they make investments on behalf of its members, and then the theory is that those money goes into certain capital ventures and such and so forth that create better living standards, better living situation for all the members of the society, and for the most part, I mean, it works pretty well. And these bankers and these financial experts, they do. They do a pretty fine job. But what I don't understand is this talk of building freeways to black neighborhoods and destroying them. Like, I'm looking at this picture here. So what was that? The freeway did that? I'm trying to understand it. But again, these people went some. Okay, so let's help me understand this, Blanche. So I'm having visions of Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo, when the guys came to roll over the community center, and then Turbo came out there with his cast on, and he start pop locking on top of the steamroller. I don't understand. Did they lay in the middle of the road to prevent? Did these people die off? Where did they go? It's funny because that's how human capital works. It transports, it moves. If you're telling me that here, and I've heard this before, I've heard these stories before. People say a lot of stuff about Detroit and the construction of I-75 and all this stuff. But where did these people go? What if I'm to believe this? And one of the things, if you live near a freeway, because freeways, once upon a time, this was back during the 18th, 19th century. You had a lot of private companies, private contractors that built. This was before these federally or taxpayer funded internal improvement projects. You have privately constructed roads that they call turnpikes. Still have some of them today. There still are some private roads, and there are some economic theorists that believe that is in fact what we should be doing, and that private roads function better than government funded roads. But set that aside for a second. If I'm to believe that the federal government just went through this neighborhood, right? That's the point I was gonna make, because I moved on from there. Because like I said, my question is, where did these people go? Because wherever they went, what's most important is not the things that they took with them. If you want to claim eminent domain, let's just assume they were paid, but let's say they weren't paid. The most valuable thing you can take with you is your know-how. You can leave all that stuff behind. You build another great community just like that, because you are the best example of capital. You are the best example of a resource. These communities don't build themselves, Blanche. It just doesn't fall out the sky. Just like wealth. Governments don't generate wealth. Individuals do. People do. We create the things that allow this society to function. Where did it go? Did the people die off? When you have roads, large roads, freeways, expressways, it doesn't destroy your property value, right? It's these roadways, freeways, expressways were built for the purpose of interstate commerce and these kinds of things. But if your property is situated close to a freeway, I mean, it may negatively impact your property value. It all depends, because it could constitute what's referred to as an adverse site condition, because it prevents an obsolescence, because people do not like to live where there's a lot of noise, a lot of traffic noise, right? And so you'll have that sometimes where you'll see a marking on the location section on an appraisal, and the value of your home will get knocked down 10 grand, 20 grand. It all depends, right? If you live near a major freeway. But all in all, people live around freeways all the time. In some cases, it could be, not so adverse, because if you have access to a freeway, that's why the freeways were built, because people can hop on the freeway, get to work, come out, you know what I mean? So, bro, again, man, it's just more delusional, grandiose paranoia, bro. It's just one theory after another, bro.
So let's see what happened to the black folks. This may answer your question. Let's see what happened to the black folks that got displaced. Let's see what happened to them.
Okay.
Wealth destroyed, communities shattered. This wasn't an accident. It was a blueprint, a system built to keep us boxed in and priced out. They didn't just abandon black neighborhoods, they bulldozed them.
Who's they? The fathers? Who's they?
So I guess so my question is, again, I think a lot of this, I never hear anybody talk about white people getting denied. So I guess the premise is that everything that white people do is 100% successful. So in other words, if a white person goes to get a loan, they get it automatically. If a white person goes and does whatever a white person does, it gets accomplished. But they never talk about white folks that actually get denied loans, actually go into foreclosures, actually lose businesses. Like they never talk about white people that actually experience any kind of financial hardships or economic hardships. They just always assume that white people get whatever they want. I'm like, how do we have all these stories of white folks talking about they lost this, they started this, this failed, they came from here? Like, how do we have all these stories, but yet every white person just, if they go in the bank and get a loan, they automatically get it? I'm like, that's insane.
Right, and whites are denied loans at a greater rate than Asian applicants. But you don't hear about Asian applicants, though. You know, it's
Or
they
Hispanic
are
applicants. They don't bring up Hispanics either. They don't bring up Hispanics.
Hispanics either. Yeah,
Asian.
you know, it's just black versus white. You know, the inconvenient minority. You know, I say it till I'm blue in the face. The only thing that matters here is economics, right? These are financial. This is basic arithmetic. This is all financial. You know, race has nothing to do with any of this at all. The free market system does not work this way. You know, ultimately, I mean, what this is nothing more than another attack angle for totalitarians, right? Statists, socialists, Marxists. This is just another attack angle, another point where they can, sort of jimmy their way in, take the crowbar and get it in there and pry their way in, and use it as a springboard, as a tool to engage in this attack on the private sector, to explain why the private sector is inadequate, why the private sector doesn't work. And government is to blame for everything because government functions inadequately, and so therefore we need to fix government, right, in order to level the playing field, I suppose, to our liking. But ultimately, like I said, because the government doesn't produce things, the government can only tell other people what to do with their things.
Right.
Where's the justice in that? Where's the social justice in that? Who, like I said, they abandoned us. Who is the they? Who left you behind and boxed you in? Who and why do you why do you think? I don't know, bro. I don't get it, Blanche. It's the pride and the ego. Black folks are so self-centered that they think that somebody is actually thinking about them.
In every turn. Like, they built the freeway because of you. They redline because of you. They bulldoze because of you. They created ghettos because I'm like, dude, all of it can't be true. All of it? Like,
no, man. No.
You might,
like I said, and if blacks were so, their neighborhoods were so doggone desirable, man, then I mean, like I said, bro, I just, economics are economics, man. It's just that simple. If you all took care of your spaces, come on, man. And then guess what? When your neighborhood gets gentrified and property values increase, and then you talk about you being priced out of your neighborhood because the annual property assessment says that now you have to pay an increase in property taxes now because land lease fees increase, because now all of a sudden the neighborhood has become more desirable. Now you can't afford to live in your area anymore. Well, you can't afford to rent the property. I mean, if you own it, if you can't afford the property taxes, sell it, do something with it. I don't know, but that's what happens with economics. It fluctuates. There's ebbs and there's flows. There's ups and downs. Some people are going to succeed. Others are going to fail. Some people fail momentarily, but they find new ways. They find new avenues. They pull themselves together. They dust themselves off. They get back up. They keep moving. They keep going. I mean, that's life. That's what happens. I just, bro, the ignorance, man.
It is absolutely.
These barbershop intellectuals, bro.
Hold on.
It's amazing.
There's been a wave of bank failures, including Signature Bank. Signature Bank happens to be the third largest residential lender in New York City, with a multifamily portfolio of about 80,000 units, a significant share of which are here in the Bronx. And I have, normally the FDIC would sell the real estate portfolio to the highest bidder, but these are not typical assets. These are people's homes. So we want to ensure whoever purchases the debt is committed to preserving affordable housing. And so I persuaded the FDIC to form a working group with New York State and New York City housing officials to ensure that the debt is sold to someone who's committed to preserving affordable housing. We have to preserve the affordability of those 80,000 units.
Now, how you now, Chuck, I'm sorry, my bad.
No, bro. I'm just saying, bro.
So I can't make a profit. So you're telling me that you're going to destroy an entire industry. So basically, I'm going to purchase this loan from someone and not make any money off of it. You know, that's what you're saying. I don't get any money. I just got to just
Right, for charity just because I want to do it. That's no. Like you said, without people don't act. They don't sacrifice their life because that's what things take time. When your time, that is your life. Your labor is your life. Your labor is your time. When you sacrifice your time, you're giving your life to something. I'm not just going to do that just because I want to do it. That was to go back to Karl Marx. That was one of his main contentions, that in an ideal society, the laborer would produce things for their own use, because Karl Marx had his labor theory of value, where he believed that value was only created by labor, which is a complete economic fallacy that has been disproven. It wasn't true when Marx said it originally.
right.
Okay, but we don't even have time to get into that. But like you said, so we want to pressure the FDIC to pretty much make sure that these people, because when you purchase the debt, that's what you're doing. You're banking on or betting on these people fulfilling their loan obligations. That's how you're going to make a profit in the long term. But if they default, when you say we're going to guarantee and maintain and make sure adequate affordable housing, what he's saying is we don't want these lenders to seize assets. We do not want these people to foreclose. So guess what that's going to do, Blanche? When lenders and investors who purchase these portfolios, when they aren't able to make profit, they'll just get out of the business. And then when people get out of the business, now all of a sudden you've completely eviscerated, completely destroyed the mortgage lending industry. And now no one will be getting extended credit because no one will be in the business. So now where are these people who are looking to purchase homes, people who are looking to rent homes, or whatever the case may be, where do they go now? Because you cannot stop people from making choices, from making decisions. As a government, you can put in place incentives and you can place constraints in the way, but there are unforeseen circumstances to certain laws, policies, and regulations that are implemented, because oftentimes individuals behave in ways that you don't anticipate, because human motivations are so complex. Human morality or human desires, things of that nature, are so multifaceted that there's no possible way that any one person or any small group of people could possibly know it, because the free market and individuals are so dynamic and complex. This is why this is just typical Marxian economic planning. This is why it just doesn't work, because ultimately people will always do what they want to do. They're not going, I'm not going to do that. All right, well, we won't buy it then. Okay, well, if we won't purchase the debt, then creditors won't extend credit.
You're
You're gonna kill the golden goose, and
Yeah.
applicants, they won't have capital. to make big item purchases. And then when that happens, guess what? The people who make the homes and the cars and the boats and the planes and the land, if no one's going to be able to buy it, then they'll just start producing it. Once they stop building, it's just this huge domino effect. And this is another thing, Blanche, reminds me, kind of off the topic, but not really, because this is where the whole class warfare, oh, get the rich and tax the rich and do this to the rich and whatnot. It's like, no. Realize something, that the so-called mega rich, they can't sustain themselves if you don't pay your bills.
Right.
So there is no, it's an illusion. It's just greed, it's envy, it's covetousness. It's like, again, they're the ones who are assuming these risks. All you have to do is make your monthly mortgage payment, and that way you get to keep a roof over your head, and they get to continue to make investments on behalf of the wider collective, your retirement, your 401k, all that stuff. It's this whole scheme, this intricate machine that a lot of middle and low income people simply don't understand. And this is why they try to blame, because remember when the ish hit the fan, they tried to say that all these folks were victims of predatory lending.
No.
And the government did a turnabout and tried to blame the banks. Said that you were taking advantage of poor people, predominantly the minority, who didn't know any better. You didn't force them at gunpoint, did you? No, the government has the authority to do something like that. They could force you to do things at gunpoint, get you to take medicines and experimental vaccines and such and so forth. The government can do that. Lenders don't have the power to do that. But they tried to blame the lender and said the lender was being greedy. No, it's that the politicians, because they had a particular social vision, they were the ones who were threatening these financial institutions with punishments and lawsuits and all sorts of other things. In order for banks to merge, you have to go to the Federal Exchange Commission to get permission from the government. If you want to join up with another bank, or if you want to open up another branch here and there, you have to go to the government to get permission. The government will look at your portfolio and say, how many minorities have you extended credit to? And they will look at the general area that your branch is located in, and they would say, based upon the demographics of the area, there isn't proportional representation on your portfolio. We see that there might be some discrimination happening at this branch. So they could shut you down. They could, again, fine you. There are all sorts of things these banks can do. And this is what the politicians were doing. And then they turn around and blame the private sector, and then turn around after that and said that we need to keep people in these homes. Once again, these politicians were trying to pretend as though they were the saviors. We're going to prevent foreclosures. We're going to stop these banks from seizing your property because they were preying on you. And it's crazy because people believe these things, and that's the perception a lot of people have, and people vote based upon what they believe, right? And that's the unfortunate part about it. And people, most folks, particularly the bliggities, they are none the wiser, right? Because for all this talk about redlining and all this other BS, the banks gave you what you wanted. They gave you what you asked for.
You still wasn't satisfied. You
And you
still
still
tell
wasn't
us.
satisfied. And they knew, and they said, we told y'all these people could not pay. They could not afford a house. They couldn't afford it.
And guess what, Chuck? Guess what, Chuck? Not that they couldn't afford it, Chuck. What's funny is everything that they put on the rich, greedy, not caring, just wanting to make a profit, is what they were doing. They wanted something they could not afford. They wanted to live a lifestyle they could not afford and they had not earned. The same thing they accused the rich of doing, they were doing, and they were doing it in the thousands upon thousands, just bragging about this, getting it was bad, Chuck. And again, nobody talks about, like you just said, folks gonna do what they want to do. You can't predict the human element because people are very fickle. One moment they hot, next minute they cold. They follow this trend and do. And so again, they won't blame everybody else, Chuck, but I lived through it, you lived through it, and these people knew good and well you work at Walmart. You cannot afford a mansion. It's just visually, you know you work at Walmart, you see a mansion, you know you don't belong in this house. So just to even think you can get in there, it's a problem. You should have said, give me a normal house. That ain't what they said. I want the biggest thing I can get. So again, Chuck, it's just crazy how they mentioned redlining, but not when the government, quote unquote, tried to overcorrect.
Yep.
With this, we got to make sure these people get into a home. You know, they get on these speeches and they say everybody deserves a home. It is the right of every American to own a home. I'm like, in what world? Hold on, time out. Do you think that every person that lived in a Native American village owned something? You think that every person that lived in the ancient Mayans, or you think everybody owns? Like, are y'all crazy?
Yeah, bro. It's the Western mind, bro. I mean, all of these. It's funny how so much of so many principles and ideas that stem from the Enlightenment and the Renaissance, which reached its apex during the scientific revolution, and with Galileo and Copernicus and Kepler and Sir Isaac Newton, and the great philosophers like Adam Smith and Edmund Burke and John Locke. And this is what we've come to, right? This is where we are. This is where we are. Only now, will people be, because it worked so well, right? These secular humanist ideas, backed by and truly given legitimacy thanks to our Judeo-Christian ethics. All right. It works so well in creating such unprecedented comfort and leisure and the affluence that so many have become so spoiled that we can no longer bear or tolerate anything that brings us just the slightest bit of displeasure, the slightest bit of discomfort. And it's like, that's not the way it's supposed to be. But that's the way things have always been for humans for the longest time. Like to bringing up all these ancient civilizations. And they didn't know how bad they had it because they didn't have anything to compare it to.
Right.
But we do.
Right.
We have the past to compare it, and we just think, and we think that we can't go back there. We can go back there, and we mighty close. If we keep playing, this whole dang on thing could collapse. So all it takes is for somebody to just a strong gust of wind to just blow this whole thing over, man. But you got a couple people like us or whatever, and the people in the chat and all over the world. Right? Got some folks in Europe that's fighting, and other some people in Latin America fighting. I mean, but shoot, man, we getting to the point where we gonna mess around, go back to the Stone Ages, man, because of our lack of gratitude. Just gimme.
Even you remember when I don't remember during COVID in California where they weren't allowing the landlords to charge rent. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, do you know how insane that is? Where you like people staying a year and not paying nothing? I'm just like, God, and you still complaining about racism? Racism?
It's the landlord, man. The landlord's getting over, because obviously the land probably, I mean, it belongs to, I don't know, it belongs to whoever says they want it, right? I mean, without the principle of private property and the ability to, I guess, avail yourself of your property rights through or to an impartial arbiter, say like a court, because of course, in principle, we are a nation of laws, not a nation of men, right? We have methods, we have standards, we have policies, and we have procedures. And without that, then you have complete, anarchy and chaos, right? You want to say, well, a landlord can't charge me rent, and because he owns the land and charges me rent, and that makes him an exploiter. Well, where in the world do you think the concept of property ownership came from in the first place? And who
And where
set
are
up
you going to live?
and where you gonna live, and who in the world set up the institutions that protect these rights? These people don't have the foggiest idea, again, how anything works. They just know what they want, and they expect other people to produce it for them just because they ask or just because they demand. That's not the way life works, man.
Well, Chuck, I know you got to get to bed. It's getting late, but if I can just get you to just, I guess, sum up,
Okay.
because I'm gonna clip the first one again to do another video, and I'm gonna clip this one too. So I'm gonna try to do about 3 more videos from these 2 lives. But just to sum up, because I think that people are struggling with what you just said, this assuming that you're owed something or you deserve something, because I don't know where people get this from, but I guess it lends to what you're saying with America's been so good that you almost expect, like you almost have this, like, because it's been so good, because we really haven't, we haven't seen any bombs go off. Like we haven't been in a war-torn country. We haven't seen like death at our front door. We haven't, you know what I'm saying? We haven't really seen it like other countries. So where we're just oblivious to how bad things can really get. But you did mention about people being so comfortable and so, even though they're condemning America for being the worst place on the planet, they still have the attitude because it's the best place on the planet, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so good, you're allowed to have this attitude where you can just, be discontent all the time with this quote unquote system. But I just want you to sum up, I guess, what you think because you mentioned it before. I want you to just say it again about where do you think the mindset comes from, why the redlining is so believable? Why is it such a thing that's like people just say, oh yeah, that's true, and they just like they don't even question it?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think it comes from, first and foremost, a basic misunderstanding of American history. We get caught up too much in this race narrative, and that comes from both the left and the right. And what I mean is, and of course, it's evident what the left does, and it's evident how the left exploits racial differences. But the thing about the right is, I think the right has gotten in the habit of shaping the argument in a way that isn't at all, or that isn't quite as beneficial as it otherwise would be if they really um, explain things in ways that are a lot more raw, and ways that really get to the heart of the issue. Because a lot of so-called conservatives, instead of really speaking about history from an honest point of view, many of them, particularly the ones on social media, and especially a lot of politicians, God knows, instead of telling the truth, they've merely become party apparatchiks. They become Republican Party apparatchiks. And you're talking about someone in my case who's never voted for a Democrat in my life ever since I started voting. So I get it. I understand. The Republican Party, in my humble opinion, is the lesser of two evils, as they like to say. Surely couldn't, in good conscience, vote for a Democrat. Especially they say the ones we have today. But the right kind of centers a lot of issues around race as well, and their go-to trump card, no pun intended, is to say, well, it was the Republican Party that wasn't as, the Republican Party was not they weren't the racists, right?
Yeah.
They weren't the party of slavery, or they weren't the party of Jim Crow, and this and that. And I think when they do that, they're missing the bigger picture, because the question is really evolves around what kind of country we're going to have, and what sort of political system must we foster in order to best secure our liberties and our God-given rights. And I think a lot of that stuff is missing, because a lot of the stripping away of our liberties and our God-given rights goes back to all of these topics, all these debates, all of these questions we have about the racial and ethnic issues in this country. Again, particularly between black and white. And it was, and again, I hope I'm kind of making sense, because I don't want to get into any one specific topic, whether you're talking about Jim Crow, whether you're talking about this housing issue, or Reconstruction, the Civil War, slavery, and this and that. At the time of the founding of our country, there were major questions about the kind of country that we were going to have. And that debate is still being had today, as we live in a time where the federal government is taking more and more duties and responsibilities onto itself at the expense of the individual. And they're doing so all in the name of fairness, or correcting some past wrong, and this and that. And it's always black folks yelling the loudest, screaming the loudest. They're always at the front of the line. And like you always say, Blanche, every single solitary, evil, demonic, satanic agenda is justified because of the so-called struggles of the black race in America. And yeah, bro, that's the tragedy of it, man. That's the sad part about it. And the old slogan, as the old saying goes, when they talk about home ownership being the quickest and easiest ticket into the middle class. Anytime you see disparities, anytime you see discrepancies, it is because of some type of discrimination. This was the shift in the liberal mind after the Second World War. This became the whole of the Western project, is to implement social justice on a mass scale, not just within the country, but the world over. You know what I'm saying? Let hordes of African and Arab Muslims into predominantly white Christian countries because of justice and fairness, and and there is this perversion of the principle of universality built into these Enlightenment ideas, that deep down inside everyone is similar, or even the same. That is true to the extent that everyone has their own individual agency, and therefore, everyone as a human being that's similar to other human beings should be afforded the space to self-segregate, to do things that make themselves feel comfortable, and to, as Thomas Jefferson outlined in the Declaration of Independence, is to pursue happiness, and just to let human beings sort themselves out as they see fit, and allow human beings to come together and find peace and commonality on their own terms. That's it. But that's what.
So Chuck, you would say that the problem is that we have these discussions, the premise is already flawed. Once, let's say, just lack of better terms, the left and right are debating on these issues, whether it be redlining or segregation. The fact that the right side doesn't just say, listen, that didn't happen, this is what happened, and let's talk from this factual point. Because they kind of concede, and they kind of say, well, somebody will say, what about redlining? And then they'll say, well, what about now? Instead of just actually tackling redlining, they'll just concede to the idea and just try to say, what about now?
Yeah. Yeah. It say, well, it was the 30s. This is when redlining began, and so this was the New Deal, right? This was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So he did it. It was the New Deal that it was the New Deal that prolonged the Great Depression. The stock market crash in 1929 did not cause the depression. The depression was caused by the trade barriers enacted by the previous president before FDR, Herbert Hoover, with the disastrous Smoot-Hawley tariff. When FDR got into office, he simply continued the policies of the previous Republican administration. It was Hoover, a Republican, who actually initiated the Great Depression, and it was FDR who continued it over the course of the next 10 years. So yeah, and again, I'm not I'm not one of these black pill guys that tries to say, well, I'm above the fray and I'm not on the left or the right. No, it's fair to call me someone of the right as a conservative. I'll accept the label. That's fair. That's fine. I don't have any problem with it. But I just think sometimes the most popular, the biggest, loudest voices, like you said, Blanche, they don't necessarily get to the bottom of the issue. It's simply, well, let me try to find a way to blame the quote unquote other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
When again, no one is asking the question, well, how far have we moved away from the original design of the framers of this country? How far removed are we? It's very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate. But black people just didn't. Black folks were redlined, meaning that the government was not going to insure these loans because you people just um, weren't suitable candidates for loans.
You too
It's
high
that simple.
risk.
Is
You
it
too
too
high
high
risk.
risk? It had nothing to do with the color of your skin, any of that. The ghetto is not a ghetto or a raggedy, worn down, torn down, violence plagued area is not that way because it's just that way. It's because you made it that way. You people,
Right.
you made it that way. It's a government conspiracy. They wanted to do. No, no. Because every single solitary ethnic group, from, like I said, Jews, Italians, Irish, Asians, so on and so forth. Especially, I mean, when the Asians got, the Chinese were just, oh my, but they have so excelled. And part of the reason, according to the great Thomas Sowell, I think it was Thomas Sowell, I remember reading him when he talked about the culture of the Chinese. One of the things that really, really assists them and gives them that extra oomph they need in order to persevere is because the Chinese, they do not feel I'm trying to remember how Soul worded it. I think it was Soul, but wherever I read it, came across it, the person said that Chinese people do not see shame in performing menial work. They don't see shame in doing menial tasks. They will do whatever.
They don't have that stigma, so they don't even.
They don't have that stigma. They don't
Right.
care. It's like, oh, I'm gonna do. Okay, I got you. And that's that drive, that's that grit, that thing they got about them. And if you know anything about history and you know anything about Chinese people all over the world, of course, I'm not talking about China proper and the Communist Party. I'm not talking about all that. But there are ethnic Chinese people in various countries. There are ethnic Chinese people in Malaysia, ethnic Chinese people in Vietnam, ethnically Chinese people in Cambodia. And just mention a person like Cambodia and Vietnam, where you had these communist revolutions in these countries in the 1950s, 60s, 70s. The ethnic Chinese were the first people that the communists killed because the native majority in those countries, because again, it depending on the circumstance and the context, the situations invert. So here we say we as black minorities, we are oppressed because we're minorities. Well, you have in other situations, you have minorities that do better than some majorities, and the majority takes it out on them. This happened to ethnic Chinese people all over the world, particularly in other Asian countries
Oh, well,
where
Chuck,
people are there.
we saw it in Harvard. They got
Yeah.
mad that Chinese people were getting accepted to Harvard. I'm like, how y'all get mad because the percentage was quote unquote too high? And I'm like, it's unfair. I'm like, how is it unfair if I qualify to go to the college and I'm paying?
Yeah. In Nigeria, you have three major ethnic groups in Nigeria. You have the Igbo, the Hausa, and the Yoruba. And the Yoruba are, I'm sorry, the Hausa is the largest ethnic group in Nigeria. And it's funny because Nigeria damn near is Africa. It's the most 1/8 of Africa's population lives in Nigeria. It's like a staple of the African continent, right? And the Hausa clan, tribe, ethnic group, whatever you call them, are the majority. They're the dominant tribe there. But they were historically based in the north, and you had the Igbos in the Yoruba to the south, but particularly the Igbo. When Christian imperialists came into Nigeria, you had the Christian imperialists came in from the south, and the Moors came in from the north, and so they kind of split Nigeria in half. You had the Islamic north, and you had the Christian south, and the Christians brought with them a certain culture, and they began to open up these missionary schools, and they began, teaching the Yoruba and the Igbo, and they ended up surpassing the Hausa, and the Hausa were infuriated, and they began to look bitterly at the Yoruba because they were excelling beyond them. And when Nigeria gained its independence, Hausa being the majority, they leveraged their sheer numbers politically to then begin suppressing the Yoruba, because they wanted revenge. Because these are all Nigerians now, but they're separate peoples. Don't tell Jermaine Shoemake that, because Pan-Africanism, he thinks all Africans are the same. They don't even see themselves this way. Here's this Westerner with this quote unquote Western education who has this theory of unity that he's going to impose upon an entire continent. But let that go.
But he still ain't left. You see, he still ain't left.
But he still lives here. But this is the kind of stuff that happens. This happens all over the world. People are different for a multitude of reasons. Again, the Christian Nigerians fare better than the Muslim Nigerians, and it is for that Muslims subjugate Christians in Nigeria to this very day. And I don't even know how I got off onto that, but I'm just simply saying that, I mean, there are a multitude of reasons why different groups amass different outcomes, and the answer to the question is not always oppression. Oftentimes people, when you do put laws in place to restrict them, they still will beat you. They still will outpace you.
And what was funny, Chuck, is, I'm gonna let you go, but what's funny is the housing projects, you said that was started back in
late 1930s.
Late 1930s. And we can agree that these housing projects were brand new. So we can agree from the 30s to I guess they built them all the way to the, I don't know, 70s, maybe 60s.
Yeah.
But we can agree they were new.
Right.
So if they got the projects new, what made them run down? Like what made the government say, we're going to invest, we're going to build these nice places for you all to live, and then years later they're the worst places to live? Now, it wasn't because of freeways, it wasn't because of redlining, because it wasn't a freeway, it wasn't redlining. So there had to be some other element to make that run down.
Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. It's you. You can't get a loan. It's your fault. It's your Black, just takes me back, man. I remember you did a live some years ago, and you was like, "Man, if I was a therapist," because I remember every little funny little moments I'd be watching your content. I remember one time you was talking about you as a pastor. You was talking about what you was talking about? Something about the serving the dinner plates, and you was naming all the different foods you was gonna have. And you said you was gonna serve some greens, and you said no, you called them Al's greens or something, bro. You said something, bro. I can't remember what you said, but you had all these creative little turn of phrases with different foods and naming different black singers. Man, I don't, bro. I'm like, where does he get this joke from? But you were saying, but anyway, but you were saying something about if you were a therapist, man. You know, your main thing would be anybody coming complaining and crying, talking about you say it's your fault. But I need it. It's your fault. Next. But this is it. It's your fault. Next.
Your
Yo,
fault.
everybody coming. Your fault. It's your fault. You can't get a house. You can't afford it. It's your fault. And that doesn't mean that you're inadequate, you're dumb, you're stupid, or you're this. It's just that what choices, what decisions are you going to make to change your circumstances? It's on you. You can't get a house. It's your fault. You don't have people who don't want to extend you credit. That's your fault. If people don't want to live around you because your ethnic image is low, the public perception is poor, then
Do something about it then.
it's your fault.
You know, and I think more than anything now, Chuck, I'm gonna let you go. That now what I'm seeing, what's the most popular now is having someone to blame. Like this is the new wave I see now is the finger point. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I don't care what you think is going on in the world. Whatever's going on in the world, it's not affecting you in your everyday life. Like you can do something in your life. You can get up, you can read more, you can work out. Like there's so much you can do with your immediate person to where by the time you would even experience something from a higher power, it'd probably be over anyway. Like it'd probably be a done deal anyway. So I just think that now we're in this era where everybody wants to point the finger to something. I'm like, dude, how do we get from building a nation, no excuses, blood, all these sayings black folks have too, blood, sweat, and tears, get it out the mud, did it on my, they just all these sayings they got, and then just all that's out of the window for y'all to blame. Everybody pointing their finger. I'm like, y'all are pathetic. How are we gonna sustain it? How are we gonna sustain a country that you can't? Like, how are we gonna sustain a country if y'all are looking, if everybody's saying it's somebody else's fault? That's crazy to me.
Man, Tariq Nasheed, bro, you did the video on him. You know, it's just white, and the way he talked too. I listen, bro. I ain't with all the allegations. We need to stop trying to say everybody gay and all that. But I don't think Tariq Nasheed is gay. I don't have no proof, no evidence, no hardcore evidence. But
he sounded suspect on the Jesse Lee Peterson
yeah,
video.
he kind of sassy, ain't he?
Yeah,
Why his intonation, where he drag out his what white supremacy, and why does he talk white supremacy? It's white supremacy. Like, duh, why you gotta talk? Straighten that up, bro. Why you
He's like,
talking?
I am a victim. I am a victim.
Of what? White supremacy. Kind of got that, our good friend Keisha, doing the Wendy Williams. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? That's what it sound like. White supremacy. I'm a victim of white supremacy. Like, dog.
And then I'm like, then he got the Coon Award. I'm like, dude, I don't know, man. I just think that I look at my grandfather and I look at my uncle and my father. And my uncle and my grandfather's lives is totally different than my father. And the difference I can tell you is that my father always blamed white people. My grandfather never mentioned white people. My uncle, he only said, this is what my uncle used to say. He said, if I could be brought back here, he said, I would be brought back white. He said, it bring me back white. He said, don't bring me black back. He said, hey. But anyway, my point is, Chuck, is that it's just it's just a victim mindset. And you hit the nail on the head when you said, when we're even having these conversations, there's still a twinge of victimhood even on the right though. Like even to acknowledge that what the left is saying is even true and legitimate, you have to somehow feel with some of their agree. Like you gotta some kind of feel their agreements a little bit to even. I say no. I disagree with all of it. I don't agree with none of it. Redlining, I don't care what you say. Segregation was a good idea. Jim Crow, great idea.
Yeah, I like when the clip when the Amanda Seals debate when she talking about redlining, she was talking to the young man, and she said, you don't believe in redlining? He was like, no. I mean, he just said it so casually. I mean, just stood 10 toes down. No,
no.
You don't think redlining really happened? You don't think that was a thing? He's like, no.
Nope.
She's like, no. Just one word, no.
And you saw she didn't explain it.
She didn't explain it, right? She didn't know how.
That was her chance to let him to school him over. And you see, she just skipped over that topic. She didn't even talk about it no more. Just skipped over it. Where were you born? Who'd you grow up around?
Right.
Are you Black American? All this other stuff.
It's a script, man. Leftists can't think on their feet. You know, they just they rely on their script, their mimeograph sheet, their talking points. You know, when you ask them to think on their feet, if you were just to throw variables at them and say, well, what if this happened and that happened, and mix all that stuff together and tell me what do you think about this and what will be the outcome of that, they malfunction because they're not used to thinking, right? These aren't these aren't thinking people. They just know how to read from a script.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's it.
All right. Thank you, Chuck. Y'all make sure to follow Teach 'em Chuck on YouTube. Chuck, you should have at least, I mean, bare minimum 6 figures. I mean, I'm serious. Like you should, if I listen to you and other people, you should bare minimum. I'm talking about just like if I just said, okay, if I was a socialist, okay, we got to give him something. Let's just give him 100,000. Let's just talk about 100, like just to, because, and it's actually a travesty because your dedication to what you know takes a lot of discipline and hard work and
I appreciate it.
Dedication, but just to not have people hear this and then just to have somebody get on there and make an AI video of some Black folks walking through rubble. It's just like, I don't know. It's just sometimes this stuff or have Amanda Seals debating 100, debating 20 Black conservatives, and then Black folks say she won, but then she admits she didn't even debate. So I'm like, how'd she win? But just, I don't know. I don't know, Chuck. It gets me upset because I know that you know. And I just be like, it just infuriates me. Sometimes I'd be like, dude, it's
infuriating, man. I just I just slide over and I do my thing when I can, but you know, it's difficult for me because I got a lot of other stuff going on. But you know, with you and Chad, and I was very excited when I found out that Chad got a chance to come to Atlanta and film you, and the docuseries coming out. Some maybe hopefully over time, some good things that happen, start to grow and expand, and have the opportunity to talk to more people. So it'll happen when it's when it's time to for sure.
And I think honestly, I think that this documentary is going to be a big boost. Honestly, and I also think that from this documentary, you'll probably be getting more requests, to be on people's because really that's how people really blow up off. You blow up off of really being on other people's platforms. That's how you get your quote unquote, because you got your niche audience, but you're really gonna expand, other people's, podcasts, getting asked questions or whatever. But I do think that your voice is necessary, man, because you have a very not just honest, but thought-provoking and also detailed to the point where, like with Redline, you can walk us through what initiated this and what's been the end result. Kind of like give us a timeline through a discussion, which I think is great. But
yeah, man. New say 1930s, bro. New deal, and housing wasn't right, and the government was gonna
come in and fix it.
Come in and fix it. You know, yeah, walk you through it. Like I said, I know the history. I've read several books. I read several books about redlining and public housing, and you know, I work in the mortgage industry to in some capacity, so I know this. If I don't know anything, I know about housing. I know somebody in the comment section on the last video, somebody YouTube handle was Joyce something, and they said that that's that's not how it works in the real world or something. She said, and I just was like, man, what you heard was in so many words is me and Blanche pretty much said that black folks ain't victims, and that's what she heard, you know. And
Yeah,
so that's what
they
I
ain't
heard
though.
what she said.
Y'all not victims. And again, I'll just end on this with Chuck. There's no excuses. Chuck is married. Chuck works every day. Chuck has a family. Like they're like for Chuck to be doing what he's doing really kind of kills all of the excuses that you all have about what y'all can't do. Because y'all ain't doing half of what he's doing, and y'all no. So no excuses.
Came here to have fun, kick it with my boy. And it's I'm in Michigan, right outside Detroit. It's 11:45 here, and I got to be at work at 4 a.m. And I'm gonna get up.
Let him go. Let him
I'm
go.
gonna hop up out the bed in 3 hours and get to work.
And I appreciate it, Chuck. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'll probably have you on again for some because there's so much stuff coming up and so much stuff
I'll
going
let
on.
you gotta know where to find me, bro. Ain't nothing but a text away.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Chuck. Thank you.
I got you, bro. Yeah.
Thank y'all for tuning in tonight, man. We had Chuck. And like I said, man, Chuck is just like if I don't listen, if I hear some kind of it just don't sound, and I'm just like, nah, let me just get Chuck on here because Chuck gonna go ahead and just walk us all the way through this whole thing. And yeah, so he's really a national treasure. And hopefully, you know, Chuck will get his flowers soon. But listen, y'all, I love y'all. Thank y'all so much. Hold on. Thank you, Cruise Missile, so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rick Hampstead. Thank you so much for supporting. Alethea, thank you so much for supporting. I really appreciate it. Thank y'all so much. Listen, I love y'all. And I'll be live again on Thursday. Thank y'all so much. And I will see y'all soon. Good night.